It's December 1975, and I'm writing this in my barracks room at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona, after completing my first successful solo engine repair on an F-4 Phantom jet. My name is Sergeant Carol Ann Thompson. I'm 20 years old, and 6 months ago I became the first woman ever assigned to aircraft maintenance at this base. Tonight, as I sit here with grease still under my fingernails and the satisfaction of a job well done, I want to record what it's been like to break barriers that nobody thought could be broken, and how I proved that determination and skill matter more than gender when it comes to keeping our nation's aircraft flying. Growing up in rural Montana, I was always the girl who preferred working on engines to playing with dolls. My father, Bill Thompson, owned the only auto repair shop in our small town of Whitefish, and from the time I could hold a wrench, I was his eager assistant. While other girls my age were learning to cook and sew, I was learning the difference between a carburetor and a radiator, how to change oil and replace brake pads, and why engines make certain sounds when different things go wrong. "Carol Ann, you've got better instincts with machinery than most men I've worked with," my father used to tell me as we worked side by side in his garage. "You can hear what an engine is trying to tell you, and you're not afraid to get your hands dirty to fix whatever's wrong. That's a rare gift, and it doesn't matter one bit that you happen to be female." His confidence in my abilities gave me the foundation I needed to believe I could succeed in fields where women weren't traditionally welcome. When I graduated from high school in 1973, my options seemed limited. College was expensive, and my family couldn't afford tuition. Secretarial school felt like settling for less than my potential, and the local jobs available to women were mostly waitressing or clerking in stores. But I had heard about new opportunities opening up for women in the military since they had started allowing females in non-combat roles, and the Air Force was specifically recruiting women for technical positions that had previously been restricted to men. The recruiter who came to our high school career fair, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, was the first female military person I had ever met. She was professional, confident, and knowledgeable about aircraft systems in ways that impressed me immediately. "The Air Force needs skilled mechanics to maintain our increasingly complex aircraft," she explained to the small group of students who had gathered around her display. "We're looking for people with mechanical aptitude, attention to detail, and the determination to master challenging technical skills. Gender is not a qualification. Competence is." When I approached Sergeant Rodriguez after her presentation to ask about opportunities for women in aircraft maintenance, her response was both encouraging and realistic. "Carol Ann, the Air Force has officially opened these positions to women, but that doesn't mean the transition has been easy," she told me honestly. "You would be pioneering in an environment where many people still believe women don't belong. It will require thick skin, exceptional performance, and the ability to prove yourself every single day. Are you prepared for that kind of challenge?" Her question made me think seriously about what I was considering. Working on cars in my father's garage was completely different from maintaining military aircraft alongside men who might resent my presence and question my capabilities. But it was also the opportunity I had been hoping for. A chance to use my mechanical skills in meaningful work while serving my country, and proving that women could excel in fields where they had never been given the chance before. The decision to enlist in the Air Force and request aircraft maintenance training was the biggest leap of faith I had ever taken. My mother worried about me being the only woman in a male-dominated environment. My friends thought I was crazy to choose such a difficult path, and even some family members questioned whether I was being realistic about my abilities and prospects for success. "Carol Ann, honey, are you sure you want to put yourself through this?" my mother asked the night before I left for basic training. "There are easier ways to build a career, ways that don't require you to constantly fight for acceptance and respect. I'm proud of your ambition, but I'm also worried about what you're getting yourself into." Her concerns were valid, but my determination was stronger than my fears. Basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas was my first real test of whether I could handle the physical and mental demands of military life, while also dealing with the extra scrutiny that came with being a woman in a traditionally male environment. The physical training was demanding but manageable, Years of working in my father's garage had given me strength and endurance that many people didn't expect from someone my size. The real challenge was proving that I belonged there and had earned my place through merit rather than any kind of special consideration. "Airman Thompson, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everyone else to prove yourself," observed Technical Sergeant Williams, one of our training instructors, during a private conversation after I had excelled in our aircraft systems coursework. "That's not fair, but it's reality. The men you'll be working with are going to be watching for any sign that you can't handle the job, and some of them will be hoping you fail. Your success or failure will affect opportunities for other women who come after you." The pressure of representing all women in my field was something I hadn't fully considered when I enlisted, but it became a constant awareness that influenced every decision I made and every task I performed. I couldn't just succeed for myself. I had to succeed in ways that would open doors for other women and prove that gender restrictions in aircraft maintenance had been based on prejudice rather than practical limitations. Technical school at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas was where I learned the specific skills needed to maintain Air Force aircraft, and it was also where I first encountered the kind of direct resistance and skepticism that would characterize much of my early military experience. Out of 42 students in our aircraft maintenance course, I was the only woman, and that fact was never allowed to be forgotten by either instructors or fellow students. Before you continue this inspiring story of perseverance, skill, and breaking barriers with us, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales about the pioneers who changed what was possible for future generations through their courage and determination. "Thompson, are you sure you can handle lifting a jet engine component that weighs more than you do?" asked Instructor Peterson during our first week of hands-on training. His question was delivered in front of the entire class, clearly designed to embarrass me and highlight what he saw as physical limitations that made me unsuitable for this work. But I had been preparing for exactly this kind of challenge since the day I decided to pursue this career. "Sergeant Peterson, I've been lifting heavy parts and machinery since I was 12 years old," I replied calmly. "I understand proper lifting techniques. I know when to ask for assistance, and I'm confident I can handle any task that's required for this job. Would you like me to demonstrate?" The class watched in silence as I successfully completed the lifting exercise, using technique rather than just strength to move the heavy component safely and efficiently. That moment established a pattern that would continue throughout my training and into my assignment at Davis-Monthan. I would be tested more frequently and more publicly than my male counterparts, but each successful response to those tests gradually earned the respect of people who had initially doubted my capabilities. "Thompson, I have to admit you've surprised me," Instructor Peterson told me privately after I scored the highest grade in our class on the final aircraft systems exam. "You've got real aptitude for this work, and you've earned your place here through performance, not politics." The assignment to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base came with both excitement and anxiety, as I knew I would be breaking new ground as the first woman in aircraft maintenance at that installation. The base commander, Colonel Martinez, called me into his office the day I arrived to discuss the significance of my assignment and the expectations that would accompany it. "Sergeant Thompson, your presence here represents an important step forward for the Air Force and for women in military service," Colonel Martinez explained. "But it also comes with responsibilities and challenges that other airmen don't face. You'll be evaluated not just on your individual performance, but on whether women as a group can succeed in these positions. That's a heavy burden, but based on your training record, I believe you're capable of carrying it successfully." My first day in the aircraft maintenance hangar at Davis-Monthan was everything I had expected and worse than I had feared. The hangar fell silent when I walked in, wearing my flight suit and carrying my toolkit, and I could feel dozens of eyes evaluating every aspect of my appearance and demeanor. The silence stretched uncomfortably long before Master Sergeant Rodriguez, a different Rodriguez than my recruiter, stepped forward to welcome me to the unit. "Gentlemen, this is Sergeant Thompson, our new crew member," he announced to the assembled mechanics. "She's here to do the same job you're doing. She's trained to the same standards you were trained to, and she'll be held to the same expectations we all face." I expect you to treat her with the same professional respect you show each other, and I expect her to pull her weight just like everyone else." His words were exactly right, but I could see in the faces around me that respect would have to be earned rather than granted. The hazing started immediately, though it was subtle enough that it couldn't be easily reported or officially addressed. Tools would disappear from my workstation, technical manuals would be accidentally misfiled when I needed them, and work assignments would be given to me verbally rather than written down, making it easy for others to claim miscommunication when tasks weren't completed exactly as expected. "Welcome to aircraft maintenance, Thompson," commented Airman First Class Murphy after I spent an hour looking for a torque wrench that had been moved from its proper location. "Hope you're ready for the real world." But for every person who tried to make my job more difficult, there was usually someone else who was willing to be fair and professional. Staff Sergeant Johnson, a veteran mechanic with 15 years of experience, became my unofficial mentor and guide during those crucial first weeks. "Thompson, ignore the idiots and focus on learning everything you can," he advised me after a particularly frustrating day. "Half these guys are just testing you to see if you'll quit or fight back. Show them you're here to work, not to prove a point, and most of them will come around eventually." The breakthrough that changed how most of my colleagues viewed me came during my third week, when I successfully diagnosed and repaired a complex electrical problem that had been stumping the entire maintenance crew for 2 days. The F-4 Phantom had been experiencing intermittent power failures that occurred only during certain flight maneuvers, making the problem nearly impossible to replicate on the ground. "Thompson, you've got good ears," observed Technical Sergeant Williams as we worked together trying to isolate the electrical fault. "What do you think might cause this kind of intermittent problem?" I had been listening carefully to the sounds the aircraft made during our diagnostic tests, and something about the pattern reminded me of a similar issue I had encountered with a customer's truck back in my father's garage. "Sergeant Williams, I think we might have a loose ground connection that only fails when the aircraft is subjected to specific G-forces," I suggested. "If we check the grounding points near the electrical panel that controls the affected systems, we might find a connection that looks secure, but isn't making proper contact under stress." My suggestion was met with skepticism from some of the other mechanics, but Williams agreed it was worth investigating. 2 hours later, we found exactly what I had predicted: a ground connection that appeared tight, but was actually making intermittent contact due to vibration and G-force stress. The repair took 30 minutes once we identified the problem, and the aircraft passed all subsequent tests without any power failures. "How did you know to look for that specific problem?" asked Airman Murphy, the same person who had been most skeptical about my presence in the unit. "Experience with similar problems on civilian vehicles, plus listening carefully to what the aircraft was trying to tell us," I replied. "Electrical problems often follow predictable patterns regardless of whether you're working on a car or a fighter jet. The principles are the same, even if the complexity is different." That successful diagnosis marked a turning point in how my colleagues perceived my technical abilities and my value to the team. The resistance I faced wasn't always direct or obvious. Sometimes it took the form of exclusion from informal training opportunities, being assigned to less complex tasks, while newer male mechanics received more challenging assignments, or simply being left out of conversations where important technical knowledge was shared. "Thompson, you seem to be handling the routine maintenance well," commented Master Sergeant Rodriguez during my first formal evaluation. "But I wonder if you're ready for the more demanding aspects of this job. Maybe we should keep you on basic tasks for a while longer." His suggestion felt like being held back rather than being protected, and I knew that accepting easy assignments would reinforce stereotypes about women's capabilities rather than challenging them. "Sergeant Rodriguez, I appreciate your concern for my development, but I'd prefer to take on the same challenging assignments that other mechanics at my experience level receive," I replied. "If I'm not ready for something, I'll ask for help, but I'd rather stretch my abilities than stay comfortable with tasks I've already mastered." The opportunity to prove myself on complex repairs came when our unit received a damaged F-4 that had experienced an engine failure during a training mission. The pilot had managed to land safely, but the engine would need to be completely rebuilt. a process that typically took several mechanics working together for weeks. Master Sergeant Rodriguez assigned me to work with Staff Sergeant Johnson on the engine rebuild, marking the first time I had been given responsibility for such a critical and complex repair. "Thompson, this is your chance to show what you can really do," Johnson told me as we began disassembling the damaged engine. Engine rebuilds require precision, patience, and absolute attention to detail. There's no room for error when people's lives depend on your work being perfect. "Are you ready for that level of responsibility?" His question wasn't meant to intimidate me, but to ensure I understood the serious nature of what we were undertaking. Working on that engine rebuild became the most intense and educational experience of my military career up to that point. Every component had to be inspected, measured, and either repaired or replaced according to strict technical specifications. The work required not just mechanical skill, but also the ability to read technical manuals, follow complex procedures, and document every step of the process for quality control and safety purposes. "You've got natural instincts for this work," Johnson observed, as we worked together day after day, carefully rebuilding the complex engine. "You can feel when something isn't quite right, even when all the measurements say it should be correct. That's the kind of mechanical intuition that can't be taught. You either have it or you don't, and you definitely have it." His recognition of my abilities meant more than any official commendation could have. The successful completion of the engine rebuild, which passed all inspections and performed flawlessly during test flights, established my reputation as a skilled and reliable mechanic who could handle the most demanding assignments. Word of my successful work spread throughout the base, and requests began coming in from other units for my assistance with difficult diagnostic problems and complex repairs. "Sergeant Thompson, I've been hearing good things about your work from people throughout the maintenance community," Colonel Martinez told me during a chance encounter at the base commissary. "You're building exactly the kind of reputation that reflects well on the Air Force's decision to open these positions to women. Keep up the excellent work, and remember that your success is opening doors for other women who will follow in your path." The friendship and respect I gradually earned from my male colleagues was based on competence and professionalism, rather than any effort to be one of the guys, or to compromise my identity as a woman. I maintained my femininity while proving that it was completely compatible with excellence in aircraft maintenance. "Thompson, you've shown us that being a good mechanic has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with skill, dedication, and attention to detail," acknowledged Airman Murphy, who had become one of my strongest supporters after initially being one of my biggest skeptics. The leadership opportunities that began coming my way as I gained experience and reputation included training new mechanics, leading repair teams on complex projects, and representing our unit in technical competitions with other Air Force bases. "Thompson, I'm recommending you for promotion to Staff Sergeant and assignment as a crew chief," Master Sergeant Rodriguez informed me during my annual evaluation. "You've proven that you can not only perform this job excellently, but that you can lead and train others to perform it excellently as well." By December 1975, my position at Davis-Monthan had evolved from being the controversial first woman in aircraft maintenance to being simply one of the unit's most reliable and skilled mechanics. The engine repair I completed tonight, replacing a damaged turbine section on an F-4 Phantom, was assigned to me not because I'm a woman proving a point, but because I'm a mechanic with the expertise needed to handle complex repairs efficiently and correctly. The change in atmosphere over these 6 months has been remarkable to witness and experience. The hangar that once fell silent when I entered now buzzes with normal conversation that includes me naturally. Colleagues who once questioned whether I belonged here now seek my opinion on technical problems and include me in the informal knowledge sharing that makes everyone better at their jobs. "Thompson, can you take a look at this hydraulic system?" asked Technical Sergeant Martinez this morning, the same way he might ask any experienced mechanic for assistance. "I'm getting readings that don't match what the manual says I should expect, and I'd like a second opinion before I start replacing components." Being consulted as a technical expert rather than accommodated as a token female feels like the ultimate validation of my abilities and my place in this community. The younger airmen who have joined our unit since I've been here accept my presence without question, having never known aircraft maintenance at this base without women involved. "Sergeant Thompson, can you show me the proper way to torque these engine bolts?" asked Airman Peterson yesterday, a new mechanic fresh from technical school. To him, asking a female supervisor for technical guidance is completely normal rather than revolutionary. The promotion to staff sergeant that became official last month came with increased responsibilities that include training new personnel and supervising complex repair projects. Leading a team of mechanics on a major aircraft overhaul, I've discovered that the leadership skills I've developed through overcoming resistance and proving my competence translate well into motivating and coordinating others to achieve shared goals. Staff Sergeant Thompson, your crew completed that engine replacement in record time without any safety violations or quality issues, observed Chief Master Sergeant Williams during his inspection of our work. That's the kind of performance we expect from our best supervisors, regardless of how long they've been in the Air Force or what barriers they may have overcome to get here. The letters I receive from young women considering military careers often mention hearing about my experiences and wanting to know whether they could succeed in similar positions. Writing back to these future pioneers, I try to be honest about both the challenges and the rewards of breaking new ground in traditionally male fields. The resistance you'll face is real, but it's not insurmountable, I wrote to Jennifer, a high school senior from Ohio, who's considering Air Force aircraft maintenance. What matters most is your skill, your determination, and your willingness to prove yourself through performance rather than arguments. If you're genuinely interested in this work and willing to put in the effort to excel at it, your gender will eventually become irrelevant to everyone except you. The relationships I've built with my colleagues have evolved into genuine friendships based on shared experiences, mutual respect, and common dedication to our mission. Thompson, we're having a barbecue at my house this weekend, Staff Sergeant Johnson mentioned yesterday. My wife would love to meet the woman who's been keeping our jets flying, and my kids are fascinated by the idea of a female mechanic. Would you like to join us? Being included in family gatherings represents a level of acceptance that goes beyond professional tolerance to personal friendship. The technical innovations I've contributed to our unit's procedures have been recognized and adopted as standard practices, proving that fresh perspectives can improve even well-established systems. Thompson's suggestion for reorganizing our tool inventory has increased efficiency by 15%, Master Sergeant Rodriguez reported to the base commander. Sometimes an outsider's viewpoint can identify improvements that insiders miss because they're too familiar with existing methods. The mentoring role I've begun playing for the few other women who have joined aircraft maintenance units across the Air Force feels like one of the most important aspects of my service. You're not just succeeding for yourself anymore, explained Captain Lisa Martinez, the first female aircraft maintenance officer assigned to our base. You're proving that the barriers were artificial and creating pathways for others to follow. That's a legacy worth building. The confidence I've gained through proving myself in this demanding environment has affected every aspect of my life and my understanding of what I'm capable of achieving. Carol Ann, you seem different when you come home on leave, my father observed during my last visit to Montana. More confident, more sure of yourself, more willing to take on challenges that might have intimidated you before. Military service and aircraft maintenance have been good for you. The recognition I've received from Air Force leadership includes commendations for technical excellence, recommendations for advanced training opportunities, and invitations to participate in studies about integrating women into previously male-only military occupations. Staff Sergeant Thompson, your experience and insights are valuable for understanding how to make this transition successful for everyone involved, explained Colonel Martinez when he recommended me for a special assignment studying gender integration policies. The pride I feel in my work goes beyond personal accomplishment to include satisfaction in contributing to national defense and advancing opportunities for future generations of women in the military. Every aircraft I help maintain returns to service ready to protect American interests and personnel, while every barrier I overcome makes it easier for other women to pursue their own goals without gender-based limitations. The plans I'm making for my future in the Air Force include pursuing advanced technical training, competing for leadership positions, and continuing to demonstrate that competence and dedication matter more than traditional assumptions about gender roles. Thompson, have you considered applying for warrant officer training? Asked Chief Master Sergeant Williams. Your technical expertise and leadership abilities would make you an excellent candidate for advanced responsibility. The impact of my success extends beyond my individual career to influence Air Force policies about women in technical positions, inspire other women to pursue non-traditional military occupations, and demonstrate to male service members that integration can strengthen rather than weaken military units. The data from units with female aircraft maintenance personnel shows improved performance across multiple metrics, reported a study I was asked to participate in. Integration appears to enhance rather than diminish overall unit effectiveness. Looking back on these 6 months, I understand that becoming the first female mechanic at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base was about more than achieving a personal goal or advancing my own career. It was about proving that artificial barriers based on gender assumptions limit military effectiveness and waste human potential that could be serving national defense. The resistance I faced was real and sometimes discouraging, but it was ultimately less powerful than skill, determination, and the willingness to prove myself through performance rather than arguments. Every successful repair, every problem I solved, every aircraft I returned to service helped demonstrate that women could excel in positions where they had never been given the opportunity before. The young women who will follow in my path will face fewer obstacles because of the groundwork that has been laid by women like me, who were willing to be pioneers in hostile territory. 20 years from now, having female aircraft mechanics will be so normal that nobody will think twice about it, I wrote in my latest letter home. The barriers that seemed so solid and permanent in 1975 will be remembered as temporary obstacles that were overcome by people who refused to accept them as permanent limitations. The legacy I want to build through my Air Force career is not just about being the first woman to do something, but about being a competent professional who happened to be female and who proved that gender restrictions were based on prejudice rather than practical limitations. The grease under my fingernails tonight represents more than successful aircraft maintenance. It represents the possibility of a military where assignments are based on ability rather than assumptions, where barriers fall when they're challenged by capable people, and where serving one's country is limited only by individual potential rather than artificial restrictions. The first female mechanic at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base has become simply one of many skilled mechanics keeping America's aircraft flying, and that transformation from novelty to normalcy represents the kind of progress that makes military service and sacrifice worthwhile.